everybody that's here. I hope that you all had a wonderful Christmas and that you're ready to rock and roll as we head towards the new year. Greetings to anybody who is watching this service remotely. We are so glad that you are here. I'm Reverend Dr. Claudia Hall. My pronouns are she or they, and I am delighted to serve here as the minister. So good to see everybody today, both our new friends and our longtime members and returners and our littlest members. And I hope that you'll all take the time in coffee hour to reach out to somebody new, say hello, and offer a welcome to new friends. That's right, offer welcome. For anybody who can't see, our littlest member is over here demonstrating how we should be very nice to one another. I love it. We welcome everyone this morning to this home of comfort, spirit, justice, and hope, for we are Unitarian Universalists. An important ritual in our Unitarian Universalist faith is the lighting of our chalice. We have so many different interpretations of our chalice, including the light of reason, the warmth of community, and the flame of hope. As an expression of leadership in our community, our children are getting our chalice lighters every week. And so if you're watching elsewhere, we invite you to go ahead and get your chalice or candle now. And if you're here, we invite our chalice lighter to come forward this morning. Mary? And we invite you all to join in saying our unison words as we project them on the screen. We light this chalice, simple today. In celebration of Hanukkah, and as the menorah lights in the windows have for centuries reminded Jews that they are not alone, may we too be beacons of light for all liberal and welcoming people in this community, that they may not despair, but instead may find their way home to us, to this beloved community. Will you join me as you're willing and able in the spirit of prayer and meditation? Spirit of Hanukkah, as we gather today, we pray that we may stand strong in our faith like the Maccabees, but that we may avoid intolerance and hatred. May we be flexible and open to change like the early rabbis without resorting to making up things about faith. May we learn from the past without repeating the mistakes of others or ourselves, and without thinking that we are better or worse as they are, as we work together to create an honest, loving, flexible yet strong, beloved community made of imperfectly yet perfect people. Amen, and blessed be. I invite you now to take a moment and greet someone that you don't know as well this morning and to make a new connection. And then we'll go sing our hymn. That's okay. We'll just try again. It's okay. We're good. We're all distracted. Here we go. Light one candle for the Maccabee children with things that their light didn't die. Light one candle for the pain they endured when their right to exist was denied. Light one candle for the terrible sacrifice, justice and freedom denied. But light one candle for the wisdom to know that the peacemaker's time is at hand. Don't let the light go out, it lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through our love and our tears. Light one candle for the strength that we need to never become our own foe. Light one candle for those who are suffering the pain that we learned so ago. Light one candle for all we believe in, that anger won't tear us apart. And light one candle to bring us together with peace as the song in our hearts. Don't let the light go out, it lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through our love and our tears. What is the memory that's valued so highly? We keep it alive in that flame. What's the commitment for those who have died when we cry out they've died not in vain? Have we come this far, always believing that justice would somehow prevail? This is the burden and this is the promise, and this is why we will not fail. Don't let the light go out, it lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through our love and our tears. Amen. It is a tradition here at the Metro East UU congregation to put each service within the larger values that we as Unitarian Universalists hold dear. Today, we're going to draw this service from the values of justice and equity, specifically how those influence diversity of thought in our relationships with others. It's really difficult in this day and age to walk a tightrope between holding tightly to the things that empower you and becoming so rigid that you harm other people rather than change. This rise that we're seeing in Christian nationalism is not new. In fact, it goes back to the early centuries when we have an ancient doctrine that church and state must be one and that emperors are anointed by gods. This goes back, in fact, to the very first empires of human history. Coming forward, we see the Enlightenment historian, Lord Acton. He was so appalled at the idea that was proposed by the Archbishop of his day. The Archbishop of his day, the Archbishop of Canterbury, said that a king could not commit wrong due to the dignity of his office. And he said that the king had to be immune from criticism and prosecution because of the power of his office. Lord Acton replied, "I cannot accept your canon that we are to judge Pope and King unlike other men, with a favorable presumption that they can do no wrong. If there is any presumption, it is the other way against holders of power, increasing as the power increases. Historic responsibility has to make up for the want of legal responsibility. Power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Great men are almost always bad men, even when they exercise influence and not authority. Still more when you superadd the tendency or the certainty of corruption by authority. There is no worse heresy than that the office sanctifies the holder of it. As Unitarians and Universalists, we have always been dissenters against the status quo, whether the Christian nationalism of the right or, I need to hold up today, the anti-Semitism of the left. You see, folks, I want us to look today beyond the narratives, because one of the horrible things that I have seen in the past couple of years since the October 7th attacks on Israel is people jumping to the conclusion that Israel is a horrible place. Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. Israel is the only place where women have rights in the Middle East. Israel is not perfect, but Israel is the only place where religious minorities have rights in the Middle East. Israel is not committing genocide, folks. If they wanted to, they could. They have the power to do it. They have nuclear weapons. Should they use them? Of course not. Are they doing good in all the things they're doing? Of course not. Are they going overboard sometimes? Very possibly. Is Netanyahu a horrible person? Absolutely. These things said, because, power corrupts, great men are almost always bad. Let's go back to that, right? We can and should criticize when they're doing things that aren't right. What we shouldn't do is listen to people on TikTok who are influenced by China, because what China wants us to do is to quit paying attention to the fact that they have 1.5 million Muslim people in slavery making the cheap things that you buy on Temu. 1.5 million Muslim people that are being used as slave labor. Why are we not yelling and screaming at China every day? Just in terms of sheer numbers, folks. Instead, we point to the single place in the world where Jewish people are somewhat safe, and we say terrible things about them every day. Do you know how many Muslim people America has killed in our multiple wars overseas? Millions. Not 40,000. By the way, that 40,000 plus number is something that Hamas, a terrorist agency, is giving you. Terrorist agencies are not known for telling the truth. I'm just pointing this out. I'm not saying Israel is doing all the right things, because they're not. Violence is not the solution. But I am saying it to point out the blatant anti-Semitism that is running rampant in these reports. We have to ask ourselves, who is writing this and why are they saying what they're saying? Lots of them are saying it because they want us to not pay attention to what they're doing. He's like, no. I just don't want you playing with the chalice, that's all. I will keep you away from the fire. Yeah, you can come up here. You can come play. Just not up there. He's like, oh, that's the one thing you don't want me to touch? Then I'm going to touch it. Human nature in action, folks. That's the one thing I can't touch. I'm going to go touch it. So what I'm asking you is really to find reports that are accurate. The Associated Press, as much as I love them, is not reporting accurately. They are going and listening to Hamas. Hello, terrorist agencies aren't accurate. Why are they going and listening to these figures? Why is no agency trying to find behind the scenes numbers? I don't understand. I don't understand. So what I ask for, what I pray for every day, is that the Muslim people of the Middle East realize that killing all the Jews is not the answer, and that the Jewish people of the Middle East find a way to realize that not everybody does want to kill them. Because right now, it doesn't look like that's the case. May we all be dissenters. May we all call great men who are always bad men to account. And may each and every one of us know that in being diverse and coming together, we are making something that can last. Amen, and blessed be. As part of our weekly worship service, we take time to express our joys, concerns, or sorrows. Many of us have probably had all of those this week, including an awful lot of holiday stress. So I invite you to pick up your stones today, put all your stress in it, and then let it go. A new year is coming, a new chance for each and every one of us to let go of what does not serve and to only carry forward the things that we wish into this new year. We invite you to come forward this way, process around, and then go back. And if any of you have mobility challenges or do not need to come forward for any reason, just raise your hand and one of us will place stones for you. I invite you to be in a spirit of prayer and meditation. All right, so today I am actually going to do the story time. Do you want to come forward? We'll do a story together. Can you come over here? Now let's see if it's going to hate me because I'm next to the speaker. All right, come on up, big kids, little kids, and all kids. You want to play with the stuffy, buddy? You want to come over and play with the stuffy? We got stuffy. The menorah moose must make an appearance every year at least once. All right, so now I have a trick question. And Jesse, you don't get to answer because you already asked me. Does anybody remember the name of this from last year? Yes, Rebecca. It's not a menorah. That's good. That's half the answer. Anybody else? All right, so this funky thing is called a Hanukkah. And the reason it's a Hanukkah, not a menorah, is because it has 8. A true menorah only has 3 on each side, so it's got 7 total. And the reason that it's different is because the ordinary menorahs are used for everyday light. The Hanukkah gets an extra one because it's only used for festival lighting. So do you guys remember the stories about the Hanukkah? By the way, literally everybody calls this a menorah, so you will never get corrected for that, by the way. Like, even in a lot of Jewish circles, people will say light the menorah. It's totally normal. So do you guys remember any of the stories? Or should I tell you? All right, so there's 2 stories about Hanukkah. Which one do you think involves a moose? Neither, but the moose is just too dang cute. Who wants to squeeze the moose? Who wants to squeeze the moose? All right, it's his back paw. Squeeze his back paw. Just like a little bit. There you go. See? Gotta find the button. You can do it. All right. Anybody else want to? Yes, you can squeeze. There's like a little thing right on the tip of his little paw. Use. Oh, now we have interest. Do we have interest? All right, can we pass the menorah mousse back there? Because we have somebody who has some interest in the menorah mousse. Daddy, this is a picture opportunity if I ever saw one. All right. So there are 2 stories about Hanukkah. The first story is super cool. The first story is that when the bad guys took over the... I just cut out. No, I'm back. Okay. So the first story is that when the bad guys took over the temple... Oh, we're going to eat it. Nom, 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 nom. So when the bad guys took over the temple and got kicked out... And there goes my keeper. So when the bad guys took over the temple and got kicked out, they went to relight the lights. But there's a problem. There's only 1 day's worth of oil. What are they going to do? Because it takes 8 days to make more. So what do? They start burning the 1 day of oil that they have. But oh my gosh, a miracle happens and it lasts for 8 days. Woo! There's only one problem with that. It didn't actually happen. Very sad. But it gave us a great tradition. And so the great tradition on Hanukkah is that you fry stuff in oil. So it's literally a religious obligation to eat fried food for 8 days. Being Jewish is awesome. It's to make up for the fact that the other 300 and something days of the year people want to kill you. Okay, so that's the first story. The second story is that what happened is a bunch of bad guys way back in the way back took over the temple, and they did horrible things. So do you guys know anything at all about kosher? Yes. That's right. Traditional Jewish people do not eat a lot of foods. What's one of the foods they don't eat? It goes oink. Yes, pork. Hey, RE people, you're doing your job. Excellent work. All right, so one of the things they traditionally don't do is they traditionally don't eat pork. But guess what? The evil emperor in question decided that he was going to drive a bunch of pigs into the temple and sacrifice the piggies on the altar of the Jews. The dude was not very good. This caused all the Jewish people to get really angry, and a whole bunch of them rose up, and they had a whole revolution. Viva la revolution! Yes, revolution. Woo! And at the end of the revolution, they realized that they hadn't celebrated another fun holiday, which is called Sukkot, which I love. Probably more than any other of the holidays because it's fun. You build like these little tents and you hang out in the backyard for a week. It's great. Anyway, so they went ahead and decided to have it in the winter, but it was cold and it was dark. So they decided to do it with candles instead of booths outside, because who wants to stay outside for a week in the winter? That's like really cold. So instead of sleeping in tents outside for a week in the winter, they lit candles. But you can tell I have a little person in my house because typically you do these with candles. But when you have small people at your house, you don't do them with candles. You have LEDs and the menorah mousse. And the menorah mousse is a new tradition, obviously, because moose are native to North America. So the moose was not at all present in the temple, but he's so gosh darn cute that he had to come make an appearance for Hanukkah today. So the story of Hanukkah is about standing up for what you believe in and not letting gross people do terrible things to your church building. It's also about doing fun things like eating fried food to celebrate your holidays. So what's your favorite thing to do to celebrate the holidays? Presents? Presents is pretty good. Money? Being with your friends on the holidays? How about you? Eating. Well, there are some white and red striped jelly donuts out there. The jelly donuts have a very fancy name. They're called sufganot. They are a traditional jelly donut that is eaten because they are fried in fancy oil. You know, religious obligation. The other one is called a latke. And we did something fancy this year. Usually you eat latkes with either applesauce or sour cream. We decided to make a latke bar this year. And I am now on team goat cheese latke because it's pretty amazing. They're potato pancakes, and we put blueberry goat cheese on top. Don't knock it till you tried it. All right, guys, so just think about shining your light. This is the other thing before I leave that I wanted to say. One of the other religious obligations, in addition to the tasty food, is you're supposed to put your light in the window. And this was because traditionally, you might be the only Jewish family in town, and travelers to town wouldn't necessarily know who they could stay with and be safe. Because again, the other bajillion times of the year, everybody wants to kill you. So you're traveling to town, you don't know who the Jews are, you're scared that they're going to beat you up or kill you. What are you going to do? You're going to look for this little thing in a window, and you knew that if you found this, you could knock on the door and you could be assured that you would be safe. So we, as UUs, have to find a way to let all of our friends know, right? So anybody who's transgender, or anybody who's different, or anybody who needs extra love, anybody who's neurodiverse, anybody who just doesn't think like all those weirdos out there, but is our kind of cool person, we need to find ways to be a light in the window for them. All right, well, blessed be, and enjoy your Menorah. So our next hymn is in the teal hymnal, or it's not in the teal hymnal, it's on the regular hymnal. But we should all pretty much know this, because I think if you went to any Protestant church ever, or just if you've been around anybody who has sung this song, it's pretty easy to catch. Number 118, This Little Light of Mine. Good morning again, everybody, and welcome to the last week of the holiday season. Woo! All right, I don't know about y'all, but at this point in the season, I'm pretty tired. So for most of you, you might be planning for New Year's, but for me and my family, as I've told you, we're still slogging through Hanukkah. And I really shouldn't say slogging, because literally any holiday where it is a religious obligation to eat donuts is not exactly a struggle, right? I love that about Jewish holidays. Literally every single Jewish holiday, except Yom Kippur, which I hate, but that's why. Every other Jewish holiday, it is a religious obligation to eat something delicious. And the reason for that is absolutely what I said. It's a joke in Jewish circles, because it's true, is that every Jewish holiday has the same theme. They tried to kill us, we survived, let's eat. And the reason for that is because that is Jewish history in a nutshell. And so when I go off on my little tangents like I did this morning, it's because my frustration with the left, who has traditionally been pretty in sync with Jewish values, and Reform Judaism has made humongous contributions to social justice for hundreds of years. And now, ever since Jews have gotten their own country back, all of a sudden, like the first indigenous people in the world who got their country back, and all of a sudden the left is like, well, maybe we don't really want Native people to get their land back. Maybe that's a little too far. And it makes me wonder how much we have our own work to do as white people about, like, do we really want to empower people, or do we want to just feel good about giving charity? Now, I straddle these worlds because I'm obviously a pasty pale white Irish girl, right? But I'm also a Jew, because Judaism is one of the few ethnic groups that you can convert to, because it's also a religion. So I have all these like weird hybrid identities going on, and I'm not the only one in this congregation because we're UU. So all of us have like weird hybrid identities going on. So I feel like you can kind of walk with me on this journey, even if it's not identical to your journey. So anyway, back to donuts. Donuts is a fantastic religious obligation. Highly encourage it. But as far as a holiday goes, Hanukkah is one that's really, really hard to make spiritual. And it's hard for two reasons. The first reason is it's so gosh darn close to Christmas because it becomes the Jewish Christmas. And that's really awful, first of all, because Jewish Christmas means it's secular Christmas. So it's just Santa Claus and presents, which is like the worst part of Christmas because Christmas should be about family and new life and spirituality and coming together and like all those things with presents tacked on because, kids. But instead, in Judaism, you wind up with Hanukkah just being Santa Claus and Christmas, the Santa Claus and presents part without anything else. And then when you start studying Hanukkah, it gets even worse because what you find out is what happens when heroes actually get what they want. So first of all, we're going to have a boring history lesson, and I'm really sorry about that because I'm kind of falling asleep this morning myself. I had to give up caffeine, do not recommend. But hopefully I'll make it at least a little bit fun. Hanukkah represents the last time for 2,000 years that the Jewish people had an independent government. So it actually makes a lot of sense why it stuck around. Brief history of Judaism goes like this. They were slaves. Then they were in tribes. They had a king or two. They built a temple. Then they decided they didn't like being together, so they split. Then they had some not so great kings. The northern kingdom got conquered by Assyria and went poof. We never hear from them again. A few more years happened. Then the southern kingdom gets conquered by Babylon. All the important people, so all of basically anybody literate, all the teachers, all the scribes, all the holy people, everybody just goes sucked up, taken to Babylon. Giant brain drain. Everybody got dragged off in a time that is now known as the exile. Now, this is the time, 586 BCE, for anybody who cares, all of those people get sucked up and over to Babylon. So what are they going to do? They're an agricultural people. Their whole way of life is based around this temple that just got like torn down and this land that they're now, hundreds of miles away from. So what do? Well, they start writing down their history and their stories, but they've already started to forget them. So now what do? Well, they take the stories that are floating around in Babylon, like the Enuma Elish, and they twist it to fit their own stuff, and then they stick their own stories in it. And so that's how we get the Great Flood, and that's how we get the tree, and that's how we get all this other stuff. And then they write down the Torah. They start to shape their identity as being different from all these other people. Well, the Babylonians got kind of soft, and a few years after that, they get conquered by the Persians. The Persians had a different ruling policy and let the Jews go home. They're like, get out of here, whatever. Judah became a vassal state. They had a religious court. They had their own stuff. They just had to ship their taxes back to the government. No big deal. Then this guy called Alexander the Great shows up. Has anybody studied this dude in school? I feel like most of us have at least. Nobody has studied Alexander the Great? Wow, y'all. Did anybody take history at college besides me? Okay, thank you. That's okay. The only thing you need to know is the dude conquered the entire world. Oh, we need to come back to Daddy. Oh, it's okay, Bubby. Oh, pumpkin. See, somebody wanted to learn history. All right. So Alexander the Great shows up, makes everybody Greek-ish. His job, his goal in life was to make the entire world Greek. Well, he basically did. He conquered the known world at the time, but then he dropped dead. And so everything fell apart. People who conquer are not really good at building empires. That's something history will teach you. But in his time of conquering the entire world, two important things happened. One, the Hebrew Bible got translated into Greek, but there was a lot of issues with translation. This is important because that's the Bible that Christianity uses. That caused a lot of problems down the road. Now, that's not important for this story, so I'm going to skip all that, but I just want you to kind of put a pin in it because it comes in handy for that class that I'm teaching in January. Hint, hint. Okay. what is important is that a lot of the Jews, and I mean like a lot, like 90% plus, were open to a lot of Greek practices. So they built some other temples. Did you know that? Did you know that there was more than one Jewish temple? Oh, shocker! They actually had other temples and other shrines all along the trade routes. They actually lived in different things. There's evidence that some Jews kept kosher and did all the things, but a lot of Jews gave up a lot of that stuff. They were like, I live like 7,000 miles from home. What if I'm going to have a pork sandwich once in a while? Basically, they were Reformed Jews way back in, 200 BCE. Now, this caused a split in the Jewish community, kind of like we still have today, between those who thought that assimilation or living like the predominant culture was the way to go, and those who thought that only sticking with their own kind and following their own ways was the way to go. Literally, this is the same fight that is happening in Jewish communities today, and for the same reasons. Both parties have the same exact argument that they've been having for 2,500 years, right? And the argument goes like this. Assimilation side says, but if we just fit in, everybody will love us and they'll quit murdering us. Yeah, well, that hasn't happened. Side B says, well, if we just stick to our own kind and we just stay out of the way, they'll quit murdering us. That hasn't happened either. How do we get them to quit murdering us? I don't know, okay? But I also like bacon sometimes, so it's a really hard choice. All right, so what do we do? I don't know, but there's tension in the community between the Hellenized Jews and the fundamentalist Jews. Family squabble, what are you going to do? Well, it stayed a family squabble until this dude called Antiochus shows up. This is the guy I was talking about who drove the pigs into the temple, sacrificed them on the altar. He was like really bad guy. He also shut down the priestly enterprise. So the priests are now out of work, and that's what actually triggered it. It wasn't so much that he changed the stuff. It's that he set his own guys up as the priests and he kicked the priests out. So now you have a whole bunch of religious leadership that has no money, and they were really upset. So they started a revolt, and the fundamentalists joined in right away, and some of the Hellenistic Jews did as well, because they were just mad. Like, I may not go to temple, but it's my temple, and how dare you do something with it? Isn't that right? Yes. Because even when they tried to compromise, right, they're like, we've compromised so much, and you still kept taking more. Like, how much is enough? And the revolt worked, which surprised everybody. Yes. Because nobody fought against these guys. Like, nobody fought against the Seleucid Empire. Nobody won against these empires. And so Judah revolting and becoming a free state was a huge deal. So the holiday of Hanukkah actually celebrates the Jews reclaiming their land for doing this. Now, this is really cool, and it's written up in the books of the Maccabees, which gets stuck in the Greek translation of the Bible that I was telling you about. So the problem is that's not the whole story, okay? So the story that gets written up pretty quickly after those events. Rah, rah, go Maccabees, did a good job, they saved everything, woohoo! Then we have several hundred years later, temple gets destroyed, everything has to get rewritten in Jewish life. These group called the Christians, there's a whole big fight, everything changes, okay. There's a big split. Jewish people go their own way, Christianity goes its over way. The people who are called now rabbis start writing this book on how do we live as Jewish people when there is no temple left. And what they start doing is they start writing up how do we observe our holidays. Because up until this point, every single Jewish holiday was observed at the temple. That's what you did. You went to the temple. You went to the temple on Yom Kippur. You went to the temple on Rosh Hashanah. You went to the temple on da-da-da-da-da. You went to the temple all the time. Okay. Well, we don't have a temple. And we don't have land, because we've all gotten kicked out again, and now we're exiled, and we're thrown all over the place in the Roman world. Oh, and did I mention the Roman Empire is falling apart, Christianity is taking over the world, we're being persecuted, what do we do? So they look at this, and they say, how do we observe our holidays? And so they start writing this document known as the Talmud. The other thing that they start saying is, how are we Jewish? Because most of the laws that are in the actual Torah, like if you go back and read well, most Christians call the Old Testament, so the Tanakh, the Torah portions, if you read those, what you're going to see is a lot of these laws are like how do you care for your trees, and what do you do if your ox gores somebody else's ox? Well, by this point, the Jews have lost their land. They've been turned into essentially nomads. So they're like, okay, how does this law apply if I am like, I don't know, a wandering jewelry merchant, in the 3rd century CE? Like, how does this law apply? So the Talmud is this humongous, literally it takes up like a pew, text that was written over hundreds and hundreds of years. And so when they got to Hanukkah, they really struggled. And the reason they really struggled is because of what happened next. Okay, so the original holiday, the original books of the Maccabees are written when everybody's still like, rah, rah, we got our kingdom back. The rabbis are like 400, 500 years later. And what happened is as soon as they kicked out the Greek fundamentalists, the Hasmoneans became just as awful. They became bloated with power. They ruled with an iron fist. They crushed any Jew who wanted to assimilate at all. They made everything, I don't know. I'm not going to shame anybody, but if you've ever watched one of those shows on HBO like Rome or Game of Thrones or anything like that, okay, that was the Hasmonean Empire. I am not making this up. There was backstabbing, incest, murder, curses, black magic, political intrigue. Like, they have found all kinds of stuff that these people did. Zany stuff. And all of it was about how to be ultra, ultra, ultra orthodox by their standards. Now here's the problem. The rabbis knew that the Jewish people needed Hanukkah. They needed to know that the Jewish people could succeed. They needed to know that the Jewish people could have their country again someday after this total devastation and loss by Rome. They needed to know that they could have light in the darkness, and that they had a fighting chance, even when the world is against us and they're the underdog. So they didn't know what to do, because people were celebrating this holiday, and they loved this holiday, and they really needed this holiday. But the story of the Hasmoneans is awful because they turned into terrible people. So they decided to shift it, and they made this miracle up whole cloth. And they stuck it in there. And the problem is that they took what they did a smart thing, right? They took what people were doing, which is lighting this lamp for 8 nights, and they sanitized it to distract from what the Hasmonean Empire turned into. And I really think that they missed a chance here. I think that they swung and they just missed completely. Because they could have had us do any kind of things, right? They could have had us light candles for our values, like we do in service every week. They could have had us light candles to recall great souls that have brought light to our world, or any number of things. But instead, they created a myth of a temple that didn't exist anymore, and they made up a miracle to downplay the way that power corrupted the heroes of the story. Now here's the thing. They're not around, so I can't ask them why they went that route. Maybe the story was too entrenched already. Maybe too many of the rabbis demanded there be some kind of sacred reason. Since what the Talmud was doing, they were reinventing the religion from the ground up. So maybe they needed some kind of fiction that tied it to the temple. I don't know. But I do know that it has hurt Jewish life over the years. I do know that every time we teach our children about miracles and beliefs that don't make sense, and then they later learn that isn't how the world works, they lose faith in faith. We can adapt to the culture without accepting its myths as truth. We can tell our kids the truths of other religions where they have reasonable points and where those religions are making things up or getting things wrong. And we should do that. Pretending that every belief is equal leads to anti-vaxxers nominated to lead national health departments. Pretending that every viewpoint has equal weight leads to the horrors descending on Washington. As liberals, we value being nice, giving everyone a say, and letting every viewpoint be heard. But so many viewpoints, especially on social media, are flat out lies. One of the things that, and none of us are prepared for this, but it's happening more and more and more, the amount of AI videos. We've been trained to believe video evidence, but folks, so much of what you're seeing now, and it's not just the war in Israel, right? But so much of what you're seeing all around the world, it's just flat out not true. whether you're seeing it on Facebook or TikTok or even sometimes regular media. They're having to retract it later. Well, they never publish it on the front page when they retract it, right? It's on page 47 in tiny little print. You have to dig to find the truth. It's hard. But we have to be on the lookout and we have to call out the lies. If what someone is saying is bigoted or biased or without merit, we can't let it have the same weight as proven fact. When we don't know what the facts are, we have to be willing to live in that uncertainty and to seek the truth. We must be willing to unlearn the propaganda that a lot of us were taught was eternal truth, and to see that even if it was done for good reasons, it was still a lie. I'm sorry, early rabbis, but there was no magical oil. There was a revolt, and I'm glad that the temple was restored. But then again, there were some awful things that followed, and I'm sad that power corrupts. But I am also glad for the yearly reminder to speak truth to power, whether that is at the United Nations, my congressperson, or the city council where I live. Today, instead of focusing on a made-up miracle, I light candles and I tell my son that we light the candles to remind us that even when things are very dark outside, we can bring light into our own hearts and the hearts of others by what we say and do. I tell him that we eat these delicious foods to remember how wonderful it is to be with our friends and family, and that by sharing in these ancient traditions, we connect ourselves to history and to those we love who are no longer with us. I tell him that we light the candles and eat the food so that we have strength to do good in the world, because we all have to do our part, just like the early Maccabees, but that we have to be careful not to become corrupt like their later generations. I believe that that is a truth worth sharing for 8 nights, along with his presents and jelly donuts. My prayer for us all, Jewish or not, this Hanukkah, is that we may each find in our own traditions and beliefs the things that ring true to us, that bring us life and light. Then we are enabled to lift those things up while leaving fundamentalism, fake miracles, and AI nonsense in the past, in the dirt where they belong. Amen and blessed be. Our final hymn this morning is number 1008, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. Rejoice. Jesse was ahead of me. As Jesse passes around our offering plate, excuse me, I offer the reminder that our community of faith is supported only by our giving. If this is your first time, we invite you to not give, as this service is our gift to you. Our littlest usher will be coming around accepting hugs and snuggles. We invite you, if you're not able to give as much financially, we still do always need help with setup and breakdown. That is an ongoing thing. And I know Peg is always willing to accept every donation you can make in terms of setup and breakdown. We do have to break down today after service. So if folks could just stick around after coffee hour for like 5 minutes and help with that, we'd really appreciate that. I invite you to join with me now in our offering prayer. May this offering equip us to inspire love and seek justice. All right, so I have multiple things. So you see our upcoming speakers coming up. So I am out of town from January 3rd to January 19th. I do have email access, but my phone and text is super limited. So please, if you need to get a hold of me, email me. I'll be able to respond to that within the day. We hope that Eden will be able to be on board. We're still waiting on some paperwork stuff for that. So hopefully we'll have that. But in case you need to reach anybody, you can always reach me by email. Also, like I said, we had a breakdown today. So that's a thing. Things that are happening. We have got a whole bunch of stuff that's going on. So 3 things. First, new member class. If you are new here, or if you just want a chance to, get to meet some of our new folks, that's going to be on January 27th, 6:30 on Zoom. I've got the link. I'll get it to you. Just email me. Also, January 21st and 28th. We're going to be studying how the Bible was interpreted before the Enlightenment. So this is like really ancient methods of interpretation. The reason this is important, I'm going to try and let y'all know every month. I'm not just giving you history for no reason. The reason this is important is because they took the Bible literally, but they did it in a very different way than modern literalists do. So I want you all to be able to point out when somebody says, well, I take the Bible literally, you can be like, well, really? Because St. Jerome did it this way. It was totally different literally. So I just want folks to really understand how it was done. We're also going to talk a lot about how the Talmud was developed and why they did what they did when they developed it. So, because we do it from Jewish and Christian perspectives. So we have all of that. So if you're interested in that, we have that. Again, for our newer folks, the Bible for Liberals is literally just helping folks to understand what's going on. We don't always talk a lot about the Bible here at church, but I do want folks to know, so that they can talk to their relatives and their friends and understand what the different opinions are. And again, new member class on that. Last but not least, and this is not on the slides, so some folks have asked about what is going on with our land situation. So our land search goes like this. We have been asking, so you all voted at our meeting in November on our priorities. We have been searching based on those priorities. We went to each of those priorities in the order that you voted on them, and we have said, please, can we buy this land for this price? And everyone has said no. So that's where we're at. So we are going to have our mid-year meeting at the end of January when I'm back, and we will be looking at our next steps. If you are interested in helping us with next steps are going to be looking at residential properties, mostly. We wanted to go commercial because it would be better visibility, possibly we could have a billboard, stuff like that. But since that is not panning out for us, we're going to start looking at residential lots. If you want to be involved in that, talk to Jesse. Jesse is heading that up and is going to be our spokesperson for all of that stuff. So just help us out with that. And that's just literally anybody who wants to do stuff. We do have criteria because, it's not just right here. We have folks that come from 45 minutes the other way in Missouri. So we have to make sure that, it's close to a highway and all those sorts of things. Jesse has all those criteria. So just get with Jesse if you have questions, concerns. But for the most part, just wait for the mid-year meeting. We'll go through all the things that happened. We'll answer all your questions there. That way Jesse doesn't get swarmed with answering the same questions 15 times. So that's the update on that. Anything else? Any other things I'm missing? Yeah. So Entities and the men's group are both meeting Thursday the 9th. Cool. All right. I think that's it. All right, I invite you to join me now in reciting our prayers. We extinguish our chalice. May we each speak truth to power, be reminded that not all opinions are fact, and most of all, may we bring the light of hope, love, and sweetness into the lives of ourselves and others throughout the days to come. Amen, and blessed be. And to all of you, because I won't see you, a very happy new year.